And let's speak about also the fact that there is an elephant in the room in this conversation, which is the colonial nature on how the African markets have been accessed. Sometimes it's external forces coming into and leaving with our investments, whether it's through, the fact that we have a lot of films that are being made on the African continent, and people leave with that particular creative resource and the financial resource thereby. And that's where the conversation gets a little bit thorny. People speaking about decolonizing the creative economy of the continent. Do you think that's something that we should be wary of, and something that we should start thinking about our IP, starting to thinking about our creative control, and also our financial retainers?
Absolutely, and it's something that the continent is earnestly thinking about it and doing something about. I'd been on a UN panel with African filmmakers and funders, and they were talking about this sweep now of changing policies, of strengthening, of not just strengthening legislation, but also enforcement, of educating actors and filmmakers, the entire ecosystem in the creative industry and film in particular, on the kind of negotiations and kind of contracts. So this is a conversation I think that's been going on for 10 years, and there's implementation both at the policy level and at the practice level. That is so key. It's still happening, that there is still IP infringement, and people are still trying to get away with bootleg services, or the African counterparts seeing themselves as less powerful when they sit across the table in negotiating deals. And this conversation is quickly changing. We're seeing the rate at which African film and African actors and African talent is going out globally and really making a mark. And so there has been, and there should continue to be, an end-to-end strengthening of our value chain in the film industry and in the creative industry. But you know what, Benjamin, above whether this is an issue and whether we need to decolonize or not, is actually our mindset as well. So if you're sitting across the table and you think I'm the little person and they're the big person, if your preoccupation is decolonizing rather than building your capacity and building your funding and building your power base such that you're going to sit at the table and say, these are the terms in which we come, take it or leave it. We've done this in the extractive industries, and we've seen all kinds of different results across the continent. Governments and the private sector are now brokering more powerful relationships and contracts, which was unheard of before because of the implications that would have on the economy. There's no longer let me not say there's no longer, but having a colonial or a monopolistic view of counterparts has become less of an issue. What now is becoming a concern is, do we have the capacity? Do we have the infrastructure, policy, legislative, enforcement, funding, that would then mean that would give us a choice of partners to work with across the globe, that will give us a choice whether to create locally and distribute locally. We're seeing partnerships, for instance, with Netflix, and one of my mentors has got TV Anywhere, which then also distributes across the continent. So the conversations now are changing, but the question then, because this is a market issue, and it's not always a political issue alone. Do you have the capacity to fill that gap? Because if not, somebody will fill it on whatever terms works for them. So it's less so what is on their minds and what are they doing, and how could that disadvantage us? The question now is, we see potential. How are we positioning to be able to take that? Because if not, it's not about Africans or not. Anybody from anywhere in the world will take that opportunity. That's just business.